Emotion is the trap that brings even the strongest minds to their knees. Every empire that collapsed, every genius that failed, every leader who was defeated, all had one thing in common. They allowed emotion to sit on the throne of their mind. Machiavelli warned that the moment your feelings begin to guide your actions, someone else begins to guide your destiny. Because emotion is the easiest weakness to read, to manipulate, and to exploit. And the person who masters their emotions gains an invisible power that others can't understand and can't defend against. The world pushes you to react, to get angry when insulted, to panic when uncertain, to doubt yourself when criticized. And the moment you react, you hand over control. A reactive mind is a predictable mind, and a predictable mind is a captured mind. Machiavelli's masterstroke was simple. The one who controls his face, controls his fate. The one who can stay still when the world shakes becomes the one the world starts fearing. People think mental dominance means aggression, loudness, or intimidation. It does not. Real dominance is the ability to stay calm when others lose themselves, the ability to think when others are drowning in emotion, the ability to calculate while others are burning with anger. When everyone else is consumed by impulse, you remain driven by strategy. That is the difference between a pawn and a king. Do you know why the strongest people are often silent? Why the most dangerous minds rarely reveal themselves? Because they don't waste emotional energy. They don't give the world access to their psychological buttons. They discipline their face, their tone, their reactions. They let others speak while they study. They let others explode while they observe. In every conflict, the most emotional person loses first, not because they're weak, but because they're readable. Your emotions are your enemy when you let them guide you, but they become your weapon when you learn to control them. Anger can give you energy, but never direction. Fear can sharpen your senses, but never your decisions. Confidence can make you bold, but only clarity can make you unstoppable. Mental dominance is simply this: you choose your response instead of being commanded by your feelings. People will try to provoke you because provocation reveals your nature. They want to see what makes you angry, what scares you, what frustrates you, what you defend, what you fear losing. Never give them that map. Never show them your emotional shortcuts. The less they know, the less they can use. The colder you remain on the outside, the sharper you become on the inside. But being emotionless doesn't mean being heartless. It means you choose timing over impulse, strategy over reaction, purpose over passion. It means you understand that a calm mind makes fewer mistakes, sees more angles, and holds more power. When you respond only after thinking, you always respond with precision. Silence becomes your shield. Observation becomes your sword. Patience becomes your armor. And discipline becomes your throne. Machiavelli understood that the most powerful person in any room is not the one who speaks the loudest, but the one who feels the least pressure to react. Because the less you react, the more power you retain. The less you show, the more people fear what you might be hiding. The more you control yourself, the easier it becomes to control the situation. Emotion is a trap designed to pull you down to the level of the ordinary. Mastery is the decision to rise above it. The world does not belong to those who feel deeply. It belongs to those who think clearly. So let others drown in their storms. You stay still. Let others burn their fuse. You conserve yours. Let others expose their mind. You protect yours. Dominance begins the moment you stop reacting. Power begins the moment you stop explaining. Freedom begins the moment you stop letting emotion rule you. And the world becomes yours the moment you master the one battlefield no one else pays attention to: your own mind. People assume emotions make them human, but Machiavelli understood a darker truth. Emotions make you vulnerable. They expose you. They betray you. They open the gates of your mind to anyone who knows how to listen. The world is full of people who pretend to care, pretend to sympathize, pretend to connect. But what they're really doing is collecting data. Every smile you reveal, every fear you whisper, every frustration you show becomes ammunition in someone else's hands. And once they have your emotional blueprint, they can bend you without lifting a finger. You think people get manipulated through force? No, they get manipulated through emotion. Guilt controls more people than chains. Desire blinds faster than darkness. Anger misleads quicker than lies. And fear paralyzes more effectively than any cage could. The person who understands your emotional triggers owns you, but the person who understands their own emotions owns the world. Machiavelli advised leaders to be a lion and a fox, powerful enough to strike, but wise enough to sense danger. Control makes both possible. If you act only from emotion, you're just a lion charging blindly. If you suppress emotion entirely, you're just a fox running endlessly. But when you control emotion, you choose the moment to be a lion and the moment to be a fox. And that is the highest form of strategy. Think about every time someone made you angry. Did the situation control you? Or did you control the moment? Every time someone disrespected you, did you react instantly? Or did you let silence do the speaking? Every time life tested you, did you break down? Or did you watch yourself grow sharper under pressure? Mental dominance isn't about never feeling. It's about never folding. Every emotion is a wave. Weak people get swept away. Strong people drown in their own storms. But strategic people learn to ride the wave. They rise above it. They use the energy instead of losing themselves to it. That's the difference between people who live life emotionally and people who live life intentionally. Imagine a battlefield. Two warriors stand face to face. One is raging with fury, trembling with adrenaline, ready to explode. The other stands calm, breathing slow, face unreadable. Which one do you think wins? Not the emotional one. He swings wildly, desperately, foolishly. The calm one waits, predicts, strikes once with precision and ends the fight. That is the power of emotional discipline. That is the power Machiavelli wanted leaders to understand. People will call you cold when you stop reacting. They'll call you emotionless when you stop explaining. They'll call you arrogant when you stop justifying. Let them. These words are spoken by people who fear what they can't control. The moment you become unreadable is the moment you become unstoppable. The world tries to rush you, stress you, pressure you, provoke you, because pressure reveals cracks. But when you remain unshaken, people start questioning their own strength instead of yours. They become intimidated by your calm. They become confused by your silence. They become nervous because you aren't responding the way they expect. Mental dominance is not loud. It is quiet, steady, unbreakable. It's the kind of power that doesn't have to be shown to be felt. Emotion is not your enemy. Your lack of control is. When you control your emotions, you control your energy. When you control your energy, you control your decisions. And when you control your decisions, you control your destiny. That is how you rise above the crowd. That is how you build a mind that cannot be manipulated, a confidence that cannot be shaken, a presence that cannot be ignored. Emotions are traps only for those who walk blindly. Machiavelli's secret is simple but brutal. Feel everything, show nothing, and decide only with clarity. Once you learn that, you no longer live life at the mercy of the storm. You become the storm, and the world learns to adapt to. Most people live as emotional slaves without even realizing it. They wake up reacting. They speak reacting. They decide reacting. Their entire lives become a collection of impulses: anger at what was said, fear of what might happen, excitement from temporary pleasures, sadness over what can't be changed, and because their emotions dictate their choices, someone else always dictates their fate. Machiavelli understood that the easiest person to rule is not the poor, not the weak, not the uneducated. It is the emotional one, because emotional people do not need chains. They carry their own. Look around. The world is designed to pull reactions out of you. News meant to frighten you. Content meant to excite you. People meant to trigger you. Enemies meant to provoke you. Society thrives on emotional chaos because chaotic minds are easy to steer. When you take control of your emotions, you step outside this invisible prison. You stop dancing to the strings others pull. You become the rare individual who thinks while others drown in feeling. There is a reason silence becomes uncomfortable for most people. They fear the thoughts they'll hear. They fear their own mind. They fear clarity. And anyone who fears clarity will cling to emotion because that's the only thing that feels real. But once you learn to sit inside silence, once you learn to observe your emotion instead of becoming it, you gain an advantage that cannot be taught and cannot be bought. A person who can sit in stillness without panicking becomes dangerous. A person who can face conflict without trembling becomes powerful. A person who can hear insults without reacting becomes unpredictable. And unpredictability is a weapon far sharper than anger, intimidation, or threats. People can prepare for your aggression. They cannot prepare for your calm. The moment you stop reacting, people start revealing themselves. They show you their fears, their motives, their insecurities, their agendas, all without you saying a word. Emotional control turns you into a mirror that forces others to expose who they really are. And once you know their patterns, their triggers, their weaknesses, you hold the advantage they thought they had over you. Understand this. Emotional discipline is not suppression. Suppression makes you. explode. Discipline gives you mastery. Suppression hides emotion in the dark. Discipline shines a light on it so you can use it. Anger becomes power when it's aimed. Fear becomes intuition when it's filtered. Sadness becomes depth when it's understood. And desire becomes strategy when it's controlled. People will try to test your boundaries. Every time someone raises their voice at you, they're trying to see if you'll bend. Every time someone ignores your worth, they're testing if you'll crumble. Every time someone lies, manipulates, or provokes, they are mapping your emotional thresholds. And the moment you reveal your breaking points, they will use them, not out of evil but out of human nature. People push until they realize they can. When your emotional wall is unshakable, they learn quickly you are not someone who gets moved. You are someone who must be respected. Machiavelli believed that the most powerful form of control is internal, not external. Conquering nations means nothing if you cannot conquer your own impulses. Winning arguments means nothing if you lose yourself to rage. Gaining followers means nothing if you cannot lead your own mind. True power is quiet, because it comes from discipline, not display. When you rise above emotion, you enter a level of clarity most people never experience. Small problems stop distracting you. Petty conflicts stop consuming you. Insults stop affecting you. Chaos stops controlling you. You stop wasting energy on battles that don't elevate you, and your mind becomes a weapon sharp, focused, lethal. Emotion is a trap only for those who walk blindly, but once you master it, emotion becomes fuel controlled, directed, transformed into strength. You don't lose your humanity, you refine it. You don't become cold, you become precise. You don't stop feeling, you stop falling. And that is the ultimate form of dominance, not ruling others, but ruling yourself so completely that nothing outside you can break you. Today they're angry, tomorrow they regret. Today they swear loyalty, tomorrow they switch sides. Emotion makes them temporary, inconsistent, and unstable. And unstable people can be influenced with a whisper, manipulated with a compliment, destroyed with a disappointment. But you, if you choose mastery, become the opposite. You become consistent where others fluctuate. You become grounded where others panic. You become focused where others scatter. Most people don't realize that every time they lose control, they expose the blueprint to their entire mind. One moment of rage reveals your insecurities. One moment of panic reveals your fears. One moment of desperation reveals your desires. And once people see these cracks, they never forget them. They may forgive you, but they will remember where you break. Machiavelli understood this brutal truth. Human beings never attack your strengths first. They attack the places where you've shown weakness. This is why emotional transparency is dangerous. People say be open, be expressive, show your feelings, but the world doesn't reward that. The world uses it. Every confession becomes a vulnerability. Every emotional outburst becomes a pattern. Emotional openness may feel honest, but honesty without discipline is a liability, not a virtue. You have to understand something few people will ever grasp. Emotional control is not about becoming cold. And uncertainty is the birth of power. People fear what they cannot predict. They respect what they cannot understand. They follow what they cannot shake. This is why ancient rulers wore masks, not physical ones, but emotional ones. A mask of calm and chaos, a mask of indifference and conflict, a mask of strength and suffering. These masks were not lies, they were weapons, because the one who shows nothing forces others to reveal everything. Think of how many situations in your life would have changed if you had simply stayed calm. How many arguments you could have avoided. How many mistakes you could have prevented. How many relationships you could have seen clearly. How many enemies you could have identified sooner. Emotional control is not just strength, it is clarity. And clarity is the rarest form of intelligence. People will try to lure you into emotional traps because emotional people are easier to control. The moment you react, the moment you explain, the moment you defend, you become predictable, you become manageable, you become small. But when you stay composed, you shift the weight of the entire situation onto the other person. They begin questioning themselves. They begin losing their balance. They begin wondering what you're thinking because you've given them nothing to read. Silence becomes louder than anger. Stillness becomes stronger than aggression. Patience becomes sharper than confrontation. Because once you stop reacting, the world stops controlling you. Once you stop breaking, people stop testing you. Once you stop explaining, no one can twist your words. Once you stop fearing judgment, no one can shame you. Once you stop living through emotion, you start living through intention. You become the storm and the calm inside it. You become the fire and the hand that controls its burn. There comes a point in your evolution where you stop fearing emotional pain, not because you've become numb, but because you've learned to analyze it. Emotional people drown in their feelings. Controlled people dissect them. They turn emotion from something that happens to them into something they can study, understand, and redirect. And when you reach that level, you gain a kind of inner superiority that cannot be shaken by circumstances or people. Machiavelli knew that the greatest danger is not in the intensity of emotion, but in the speed of it. Emotion strikes fast, and fast reactions are always predictable. But when you slow the process, when you create space between what you feel and what you do, you become ungovernable. That pause is where power lives. That pause is where dominance is born. You've probably noticed something. The more emotional a person is, the faster they reveal themselves. They overshare, they overreact, they overcommit, they apologize too soon or defend themselves too hard. Emotional expression becomes emotional leakage, and the world watches, the world remembers, the world calculates. A person who can't control their feelings becomes a map easy to read, easy to navigate, easy to use. That is why you must become unreadable, unpredictable, unshakable. Not because it looks impressive, because it protects your psychological territory. You cannot lead your life with a mind that is constantly under invasion. Imagine the people in a negotiation. Once it's calm, silent, thinking, the other keeps talking, explaining, adjusting, reacting. Which one do you think is winning? Power isn't in the words spoken. Power is in the restraint. Power is in the controlled presence. Power is in the ability to stay centered while the other person spirals into emotional noise. And here is the truth most people never understand. The person who speaks less usually has more control. The person who reacts less usually has more options. The person who feels deeply but reveals. Nothing becomes impossible to manipulate. People fear what they can't read. People respect what they can't shake. People obey what they can't predict. This is why emotional control is not cruelty. It's not suppression. It's not a lack of humanity. It is the highest form of emotional intelligence. It means you choose the right moment, the right words, the right response, not because you're cold, but because you're powerful enough to delay impulse and deliver intention. And when you reach that level, you stop arguing. You stop defending yourself. You stop seeking validation. You stop trying to convince. These things become unnecessary. Your presence alone becomes the statement. People who once tried to provoke you will feel uncomfortable when their tricks no longer work. People who once tried to manipulate you will hesitate when they realize they can't access your emotions. People who once tried to belittle you will become silent when they see your silence is stronger than their words. This is when you finally understand what Machiavelli meant. Dominance is not force. Dominance is not aggression. Dominance is not noise. Dominance is control, internal control so strong that external chaos cannot reach you. You stop playing defense. You stop explaining your side. You stop questioning your worth. You stop giving people emotional access they have not earned. Instead, you move like someone who knows their value. You speak like someone who is certain. You respond like someone who has already won within. And that inner victory changes everything outside you. There's a point where emotional mastery stops being a skill and becomes a presence. People feel it the moment you walk into a room. You don't have to raise your voice. You don't have to assert dominance. You don't have to say a single threatening word. Your stability speaks for you. Your restraint speaks for you. Your lack of emotional chaos speaks for you. And people sense it instinctively. The same way animals sense a storm coming long before the sky grows dark. Most people are used to emotional noise. They are used to nervous energy, to insecure fidgeting, to reactive behavior. When someone meets a person who is internally silent, that silence becomes intimidating, not because it is cold, but because it is controlled. You begin to understand that emotional chaos was never strength, it was just loudness. Real strength is quiet because it doesn't need to be verified. You start noticing that people become cautious. With their words around you, they avoid unnecessary drama. They hesitate before provoking you, not because you look dangerous, but because you look unshakable. And an unshakable person is far more threatening than an aggressive one. Aggression is predictable. Calmness is not. When you stop reacting, the balance of power changes. People who once relied on your emotional responses to feel superior suddenly lose their grip. They can't provoke you into anger. They can't lure you into explanation. They can't pull you into emotional games. And without that leverage, they are forced to deal with you through reason, not manipulation. You begin to move differently. You stop rushing. You stop fearing silence. You stop needing immediate answers. You stop handing pieces of your mind to anyone who demands them. You become your own gatekeeper. Your words become intentional. Your reactions become strategic. Your presence becomes sharper. And what happens next is almost ironic. The less emotion you show, the more powerful your emotions become. Because when you finally choose to speak, people listen. When you choose to show feeling, people respect it. When you choose to respond, people know it was deliberate. Selectivity turns emotion into influence. This is the real secret Machiavelli understood. Control is not about suppressing your feelings. It is about mastering timing, expression, and direction. Controlled emotion becomes a weapon. Uncontrolled emotion becomes a prison. And most people live inside that prison all their lives, letting impulses dictate their path while believing they are choosing it. When you rise above that internal chaos, you gain a clarity that makes life entirely different. You stop fighting every battle. You stop explaining every decision. You stop trying to be understood by people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop breaking yourself for people who aren't even paying attention. You begin protecting your energy like a kingdom. You start thinking before reacting. You start observing before judging. You start feeling before responding, and that split second of control becomes the edge that separates you from everyone around you. Because once you master your inner world, the outer world loses its ability to intimidate you. People lose their ability to shake you. Circumstances lose their ability to control you. And life stops being something that happens to you. It becomes something you shape with intention. This is what emotional dominance truly is, the ability to remain yourself in a world that constantly tries to pull you out of character, the strength to hold your center while others lose theirs, the discipline to choose clarity over impulse, the wisdom to act instead of react. And once you become that person, you don't just survive the world, you rise above it. You move through it like someone who knows their value, someone who cannot be manipulated, someone who has mastered the one battlefield most people never even see, the battlefield within. When you stop reacting emotionally, the world stops being a battlefield and becomes a chessboard. And suddenly, people who once intimidated you become predictable, manageable, and even easy to outmaneuver. Machiavelli believed that the person who stays calm when others panic automatically rises above them, because panic destroys judgment, but calm multiplies power. Emotion is a trap because it makes you relive moments that no longer exist. Every time you replay an insult, a betrayal, a disappointment, you are handing your power back to someone who doesn't deserve it. Detachment is not coldness, it is strategy. It means you refuse to be controlled by what has already happened. Your eyes stay on the next move, not the last round. When someone tries to provoke you, they're trying to turn you into a puppet. They poke at your fears, your insecurities, your ego, hoping you will explode, collapse, or lose control. But the moment you see their intention, everything becomes clear. This is not an emotional moment. This is a strategic test. And if you pass the test, you win the power dynamic without ever raising your voice. The strongest person is not the one who feels nothing, but the one who decides when to feel and when not to. That is real dominance, control over yourself. If you can choose your emotional response instead of letting it choose you, nobody can manipulate you again. Your anger becomes a weapon, not a weakness. Your silence becomes a move, not a retreat. Your calm becomes a shield, not a shutdown. The world will try to hook you with pressure. It will send people who lie, people who betray, people who test your patience, people who underestimate you. But Machiavelli would remind you, the trap is not the situation. The trap is the emotional response that destroys your clarity. Your job is not to avoid chaos. Your job is to remain unshaken inside it. If you stay centered when the world goes off balance, you become the one everyone silently fears. There is nothing more intimidating than a person who refuses to break. When someone attacks you and you don't flinch, they question their strength. When someone tries to humiliate you and you stay composed, they doubt their power. When someone expects you to collapse and you stand taller, they realize they never understood who they were dealing with. The moment you master your emotions, you master the reactions of others. Your calmness forces people to reveal their intentions. Your silence makes them speak more than they plan. Your patience makes them rush. Your stillness exposes their chaos. This is how you dominate, not by force, but by self-command so strong that others can't help but bend around it. If you want true mental dominance, you must practice the discipline of pausing. The pause is your shield. The pause is your filter. The pause is your throne. When pressure rises and someone expects you to snap, that is exactly when you breathe, when you observe, when you decide not react. This pause is where your power lives. People lose everything because they respond quickly to emotionally. They defend themselves when they should stay silent. They attack when patience would win. They reveal their feelings when mystery would protect them. Machiavelli would say, never let emotion speak before strategy does. The moment you speak emotionally, you give away the upper hand. Your goal is simple: remain unreadable. You don't show your fear. You don't show your anger. You don't show your insecurity. You don't show your desperation. Not because you don't feel them, but because you don't let them negotiate on your behalf. A person who can stay unreadable becomes unstoppable, because others cannot predict or prepare for your next move. When you refuse to show emotional weakness, people begin treating you differently, more carefully, more respectfully, and sometimes even fearfully. This happens because most people are ruled by impulse. They explode when frustrated, complain when stressed, panic when uncertain. But when you stand there, unmoved, while everyone else is collapsing inside their own heads. They sense something powerful about you, something they cannot quite decode. Your emotional discipline becomes a mirror, and in that mirror, people see their own instability. They realize you're not just calm, you're calculating. They don't know what you're thinking, what you're planning, or what you're capable of. That uncertainty is your advantage. Certainty makes you predictable. Uncertainty makes you dangerous. Machiavelli understood that the most powerful leaders in history were not the loudest, they were the most composed. They didn't shout to gain control. They didn't argue to prove their point. They didn't react to every attack. They let their silence carry the weight. Silence unsettles the emotional mind because the emotional mind expects noise. When you give them calm, you deny them the battlefield they wanted. Most people sabotage themselves by talking too much. They reveal their fears, their insecurities, their intentions, their reactions. But when you speak less, you got a conversation without effort. You listen more, you learn more, and you gain more leverage. Every word becomes meaningful. Every sentence becomes intentional. You become someone whose presence commands attention because you're not competing for it. And here is the truth people don't like to admit. Whoever controls their emotions first controls the room. If you stay grounded, the person who tried to provoke you becomes frustrated. They become sloppy. Their voice rises. Their arguments fall apart. They attempt to escalate, hoping to pull you into the chaos with them. But when you don't go, when you stay centered, their emotional energy collapses on itself. This is how you quietly dominate interactions. You allow the other person to reveal too much, while you reveal almost nothing. You stay steady while they unravel. You let them burn their energy, expose their intentions, and reveal their weaknesses. And in the end, you win without ever having to fight. Emotional mastery also protects your vision. When you stop letting temporary feelings dictate permanent decisions, your life becomes sharper. You stop chasing revenge and start chasing results. You stop clinging to the past and start building the future. You stop fighting battles that don't matter and start positioning yourself for victories that do. Emotions make people impulsive. Strategy makes people powerful. You don't need to suppress your emotions, you need to control the timing of them. Feel everything after the battle, not during it. The world will try to break your focus. People will insult you, ignore you, underestimate you, try to get a reaction from you. But when you refuse to be moved, you become someone who cannot be shaken, cannot be controlled, cannot be used.